Worried plugin order will ruin your mix? By the end of this video, you'll understand why plugin order shouldn't stress you out, and the few times that it should. Hey everyone, this is Dylan with Musician on a Mission, here today with another mixing tip for you. Today we're going to be talking about plugin order. But before we start, I want to give you something special. We here at Musician on a Mission don't have a cheat sheet specifically for plugin order because there's really not that much to, reference during the actual process. So I figured, what the hell, let's just offer them everything else. So we are offering you today for free all of Musician on a Mission's mixing cheat sheets, like this one, and also this one, and also that one, and 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 that one. All those ones for free. If you're wanting to make pro mixes, there's absolutely a cheat sheet in there for you. So just click the link on screen right now or down in the description to go grab that for yourself. So let's move on with the video. So let's put this debate to rest. Plugin order doesn't matter. Asterisk. There's a few exceptions to the rule, but I want to explain myself first. Plugin order will probably change your sound, but it will not change it enough to actually matter in the grand scheme of things. Honestly, what matters more is your workflow, what allows you to get a great sounding mix. Where you put your EQs and compressors and saturators and other effects, honestly, it's not going to make that much of an audible difference, unless you're using them really aggressively. Plus, if you're mixing studio tracks, there's probably already EQ and compression and saturation already on it. The tracking engineer beat you to the punch. Whenever you are actually recording in a studio, the tracking engineer is going out, miking stuff up, running back into the control room, and twiddling with the knobs on the actual mixing board, or rather the recording board, and getting the EQ right and adding just a little bit of compression before it's even recorded to tape. So all of the stuff that was recorded in the 50s, 60s, 70s, 80s, and even all of the pro tracks that were done today, most of the mixing engineers got them already with some of this stuff already on it. So the order does not matter. And honestly, I tell you this after years and years of mixing as if it mattered. I mean, I would spend just so much time and energy trying to make sure that I did every single thing in the exact order that I thought it needed to be. Like, I didn't do any of my subtractive EQ after a compressor, and any of my additive EQ before a compressor, and any of my saturation before any of that stuff, and any of my this and any of my that. And I was just, it felt like a third of my mixing experience was just making sure that the order was correct. And then one day, I was trying to get a mix done really quickly, and I just didn't have enough time to worry about that. I started to use a workflow that worked for me, and I was able to get an incredible sounding mix without ever having to worry about that stuff. And so ever since then, honestly, I've kind of stopped caring, and my mixes have not gotten any worse. In fact, oftentimes they've gotten better, because like I said earlier, what matters is workflow. What matters is you coming up with a system of mixing that works for you, that allows you to get it done quickly and with high quality. And if proper plugin order isn't part of that, then don't worry about it. Just get it done the way that you need to get it done. Now, that said, we need to talk about that asterisk. There are a few exceptions to this, a few times where the order does actually matter. So first off, let's start with EQ. Now, there's a lot of different ways that people use EQ, but for the sake of this video, I'm going to divide it up into two separate options. So the first option is tonal EQ, and the second option is cleaning EQ. So tonal EQ is doing anything to change and improve the tone of the instrument. So that's going to be you going in and making your broad boosts, your broad cuts, maybe making room for certain instruments in the mix, or enhancing the top end or the bass, anything like that. While cleaning EQ is you going in and trying to get rid of problem frequencies. It's you trying to clean up the track. This includes using surgical EQ to get rid of stuff like room resonances or ringing or stuff like that, as well as using high pass filters and low pass filters to get rid of some of the gunk that might be living in the low end or maybe in the high end of certain instruments. Cleaning EQ is especially used whenever you're doing anything with home recording, stuff that you did in your own home. Not quite as much with stuff that you got from a studio, because usually those rooms have been designed to keep you from having to do stuff like this. There's not going to be quite as many room resonances or nodes or stuff to clean up in the low end. And if you don't know what I'm talking about, I'd go off and do a little bit of research on this because it's fascinating. And honestly, learning about this kind of stuff is going to dramatically change the sound of your mixes. But the reason I bring this up is that you're going to want to do cleaning EQ before you compress the instrument. Now, the reason for this is because you're being really aggressive with how you're handling frequencies. You're not necessarily changing the tone of the instrument, but you might be cutting out one frequency by 30 decibels, something huge. And it's not going to affect the tone because you're just getting rid of a problem, but it is going to affect the volume of the instrument and even the dynamic range of the instrument. And that's what a compressor listens to. So you want to make sure that you have an accurate, clean track before you actually start your compression. It doesn't have to have all of the other EQ done for it. In fact, it probably won't. But having just a huge ring or a bunch of loud random frequencies or just tons of rumble in the low end for an instrument that doesn't have any low end information, that is just going to cause tons and tons of problems with your compression. And ultimately, you're going to end up with a less musical sound. And that's what we're going for compression. So the first asterisk is make sure that you do your cleaning EQ before compression. Another exception to the rule is any kind of editing. Anything like tuning vocals or doing any rhythmical editing for the drums, or doing anything with maybe noise gating on the drums, or getting rid of pops and smacks in the vocal, stuff like that. That's definitely something that you're going to want to do before the mix. And usually that's because stuff like that, really it wants the rawest track possible. You're going to get a much better result if you're doing tuning, for example, before you do any kind of processing. Because Melodyne or Autotune or your DAW's tuning plugin, they are listening for that raw sound. They're not necessarily listening for something super compressed, super EQ'd with a bunch of reverb on it. That's honestly probably going to cause more problems than it's going to fix. So if you're wanting a more musical sound, that's something that I would do before the mix. So honestly, at this point, both of our exceptions are two things that you should be doing before the mix starts. Doing your cleaning EQ and doing your editing. So the third exception happens during the mix. And here's what it is. If you want to put any kind of reverb or delay or spatial effect onto a particular track, don't put it directly on the track. Put it on a send instead. 99% of the time, you're going to want to keep your instrument as dry as possible, and then just mix in a little bit of reverb or delay. And the reason for this is because if you want to do any other kind of send, you want to be able to send your dry signal. For example, if you're wanting to do any kind of parallel compression, you aren't going to want to send your dry signal and your reverberated signal to that compression. That's going to sound really unnatural. You're only going to want to send your dry signal. But if you put your reverb directly on the track, then you're going to send both, no matter what. Like I said, any kind of spatial effect, put that on a send, let it exist on its own. I know that's not really a plugin order thing, but it's still something that's really important to be said. Rather than worrying about where it is in the plugin order, just take it out of the plugin order entirely. So those are the three exceptions to the fact that plugin order doesn't matter. Doing any cleaning EQ before compression, doing any editing before the mix entirely, and doing any kind of spatial effect, any reverb or delay or anything like that on a send, completely out of the plugin order. So that's going to wrap it up for me. I hope you learned a little something that's going to make your mixes just go a little bit faster, a little bit more smoothly. But before you head out, make sure to grab the free Musician on a Mission mixing cheat sheet collection. Just click on screen now or down in the description. We've got 20 different mixing cheat sheets that are honestly fantastic. If you're trying to get any kind of pro mix, I can guarantee you that there's something in there for you. Honestly, there's cheat sheets in there that I use when I mix, especially the EQ balance chart. Be on the lookout for that. That's my favorite one. So like I said, just click the link on screen or down in the description below. And if you like this video, don't forget to click that like button and subscribe for more mixing tips just like this. This has been Dylan with Musician on a Mission. I hope you have a great rest of your week. And remember, create regardless. Finger gun.